Okay, so Jake Paul and Canelo were apparently set to fight in just a few months, but after a bunch of things happened, it all fell through, and now we got Jake Paul over here exposing Canelo. But before we get into this video, we gotta have a little bit of context. So about 4 days ago, we had gotten news that a Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford fight had officially been agreed for September in Las Vegas, and that we even then also saw that it was going to be taking place at Allegiant Stadium. But at around this time, we then also got the report that Jake Paul was reportedly set to box Canelo Alvarez in May, coming from Julian is Julius, who had, from what I had seen, had also broke the news of another Canelo fight taking place back then. So this Julian person here seems at least somewhat credible. But when that reporting broke, Jake Paul had made this X post onto his account where it said, "It's time, Saturday, July 5th, New York, New York." So looking at the July 5th date here, directly contradicted what it was saying on this report by Julian here, where it had said that the Jake Paul and Canelo fight was taking place in May. Now we got Jake Paul over here saying that something was going to be happening on July 5th, probably trying to sway people away from the Canelo news and the Canelo date that was given with the month of May. And then when that had happened, we then got the reports that the Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford fight that was supposed to take place in September, that super fight had just got canceled and that the fight was now off. Now when this happened, a bunch of people were thinking, like, oh, okay, so this Canelo and Crawford fight is now off because Team Canelo is now setting the eyes on a Jake fight. So like even here on the replies, you can see, no way Canelo canceled the fight for the Jake Paul one, right? I promise you, if they cancel this fight for Jake versus Canelo, I'll be so upset. You know, so people seeing that Canelo versus Crawford is off, the only other reasoning for it was because something's gonna happen with Jake and Canelo. And then later we went on to get this report here that said Eddie Hearn, the person who has like a working relationship with like the boxing scene as a promoter with companies such as Matchroom Sports and DAZN, he had said that he was told that Canelo Alvarez versus Jake Paul is a done deal. So adding on to the hype of everything going on, so at this point it was seeming like, okay, Canelo versus Jake Paul has to be taking place now. Like all these reports and everything. But Jake too that referenced the rumors and everything by saying that a source has advised me that my fight is now whatever I want it to be because I'm my source. And then seemingly in response to what Eddie has said, Jake has said here, Eddie or Eddie? And someone had asked Jake in the replies, you fighting cinnamon or not? Canelo being the Spanish word for cinnamon. And Jake over here responded to this question by saying, only Eddie knows that answer. Spelled the wrong Eddie, but still kind of hinting that like, I know that y'all have seen the reports and everything, and let me just tease it a little bit more. So Jake has said this, not really confirming anything, but just giving hints like, yeah, we're getting this fight done. And then we had seen this report via ESPN where Happy Punch here put it simply that Canelo Alvarez and Jake Paul are now reportedly finalizing a deal for May 3 in Las Vegas. Cruiserweight 200-pound limit, streamed on Netflix. So now we're almost like at the end game here of the confirmation. Like at this point it was just seeming like, okay, seems like they're right there at the end. They're right there at the very end, and any time now until we get like the confirmation. Because if the fight was to be taking place in May 3, they would only have about just a little less than 3 months of promotion. So they got to get this announcement out ASAP. But with these reports coming out and everything at that time, Jake Paul had reposted this post from Bava Sports where they had said, when there is something to announce, we will announce it. No outside promoter has any accurate insight on our discussions being concluded or not with any Jake Paul opponent. Multiple names in discussion. So showing that like, okay, nothing has been confirmed yet, and that the only thing to take like seriously in terms of announcements is when the announcement itself has come out. And Jake had reposted that here. But then we got this report that Turki Al Sheikh, a Saudi Arabian advisor, had announced that Canelo Alvarez has signed a 4-fight deal, which includes the Terence Crawford bout in September. And this was the schedule here, where in May 2025 he was going to be fighting in Saudi Arabia. September 2025 he's going to be fighting Terence Crawford. It doesn't show Saudi Arabia here, so presumably in Vegas. And in February 2026 Canelo was going to be fighting in Saudi Arabia again. And on October 2026 fighting in Saudi Arabia again. So Canelo pretty much opting for the Saudi money here. And you know the Saudis pay good. But now with the schedule here of Canelo's, it seemed like that there was going to be no more Jake Paul in his line sights. And Turkey over here, he went on to like immediately shut down the Canelo versus Jake Paul negotiations real quick, saying here that Canelo fights only real fighters. And that was him talking about on the reported Canelo versus Jake Paul fight via ESPN. So not only just outright denying that a Jake Paul fight is going to be taking place, but taking a dig at him too. Now, when that news broke that Canelo had signed that deal, that Saudi deal, KSI went onto his Instagram stories and posted this.
You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
Very much seemingly like a reference to Jake Paul fighting him. And KSI here posted, now what, buddy? Pointing at Jake and laughing at him. Presumably. And then promoted his dirty lyric video. And then finally ending it off with posting a bunch of crying emojis and saying, keep running from me, bro. Again, presumably a message for Jake Paul. Now, when that was taking place, obviously Jake has got to be like fuming right now because Canelo had signed a 4-deal fight where 3 of them he's going to be fighting in Saudi and not be fighting Jake Paul anymore. And with that, Jake went on to post this AI generated image of him standing over Canelo being on his knees. And Jake has said here, breaking news, Canelo Alvarez ducked me, Jake Paul, and is now a known slave with no regard for the pride of the Mexican people who support him on U.S. soil. So just to be a bit more clear, when he says own slave, like, I'm pretty sure he's talking about like being a slave to the Saudi people. But Jake goes on and says, it's not surprising when his whole career he has done nothing for the sport of boxing outside the ring. I'm the new face of boxing. You cannot have the biggest fight of 2025 without my name involved. When all of your events tank and lose money, you will all realize who the king of the sport is. 28 years old, biggest fight in boxing history, my own boss, not owned, 5 years in. All of you felines want to see me fail, but God has other plans. It's the era of good. The era of the elephant. It's the era of MVP and most valuable promotions. So obviously going off on Canelo here, and after that taking place, we then got this post here from Ring Magazine where they said that they had gone an exclusive where Canelo sent a message to his fans and to Jake Paul.
Hey guys, don't pay attention in anything in this fucking YouTuber. I just fight real fighters. Don't fucking around with Canelo. Come on. Let's go.
So this video comes out and obviously a dig at Jake. Has to be. Like, it can't really be any other way. So we get some dissing here from Canelo, the fighter. And to add insult to injury, Turki Al-Sheikh, the guy who had reported that Canelo was going to be fighting with them in Saudi, Turki here said that he wants to put on Jake Paul versus Mr. Beast for the Disney YouTube belt. So obviously he's just taking a big dig at Jake here.
I think Canelo, too young to take this fight. You can have it after 30 years when he is 60. Let them bring Mr. Beast and we can sanction it with Disney for the build of the YouTube and everyone will subscribe and see it.
Jake Paul versus Mr. Beast.
Everyone will see it in the YouTuber build.
Just digs at Jake there. And Jake Paul obviously not happy with everything that's gone on. He said, time to expose the little ginger puta. Response, loading. And right after that reposted this other post by Babafa Sports where Babafa had said that Jake versus Canelo was planned as a cruiserweight fight. Team Canelo approached us to do the fight at 190 pounds, Canelo's walk around weight. We said it made no sense to take away the one advantage the public would see for Jake, his size. So the agreement was a standard cruiserweight fight, 12 rounds, 3-minute rounds. And in response to everything, Jake made this video here with the caption, exposing Canelo.
Oh, Canelo, you puta.
In this fucking YouTuber. I just fight real fighters.
Time to expose them. So we had a signed contract to fight. Here you can see Canelo's signature and my signature to the right. Claiming he's not fighting YouTubers. Bullshit. Look at the poster. We were announcing Tuesday, February 11th. Expose them. So
wait. So this is like a mock-up poster? This is pretty interesting seeing a mock-up. Canelo Alvarez versus Jake Paul Saturday, May 3, Las Vegas, T-Mobile Arena. Oh, and they were gonna kind of like build it as like a Mexico versus US type of thing.
We were announcing Tuesday, February 11th. Claiming he fights real fighters, but he's fighting Crawford, a 135-pound fighter, and running from a real fighter like David Benavidez, you bitch. The truth is you can be bought. You're a money-hungry squirrel chasing your next nut. The truth is these sports-washing shady characters are paying you hundreds of millions of dollars to stop our fight from happening because they couldn't fathom the fact that they can't create a bigger fight than me and you. Al Heyman has made you hundreds of millions of dollars and you turned your back on him for this check. Disloyal. And you were begging to do this fight on pay-per-view. But I have loyalty. Loyalty to Netflix, doing the biggest numbers. And you call me a YouTuber, but you've never had a boxing match as big as mine. Remember you told my team that your daughter came home and asked if you were fighting Jake Paul? She was all excited. You said that was the first time your daughter's ever asked you about a fight. And you're screwing over all your Mexican fans by doing your fights in Saudi. It just shows what type of person you are. And I promise you one thing, Canelo. Any fight that you do this year, mine will be bigger. So go fuck off to your boss, you Ring Magazine employee, you pink and orange bitch. And oh, fix that herpy on your lip, you dirty puta.
Dude. No, yeah, Jake's got a point there with the, I don't know if it's entirely screwing the Mexican fans, but yeah, like, it is kind of like a bummer that the Mexican fans, like, he won't be fighting in Mexico, or if he were to find the U.S., like, the Mexican fans can, like, come and tune in. But I mean, dude, like, is anybody gonna, like, front Canelo up in here? Like, dude's making, like, hundreds of, what was he saying, like, hundreds of millions of dollars at this, for the Saudi things? Like, dude, I don't know who wouldn't take that. Dude, that Saudi money is like big. But yeah, all of that happens, and we ended off here on Jake Paul posting this another AI generated picture, this time of Canelo's head on top of a duck. Alright, so it is now 24 hours later. A couple of extra things have happened regarding the Jake Paul and Canelo situation, so instead of making a whole other video about it when it's not really that much to add, I'm just gonna do this segment right now. So where we ended off was last night, where Jake had posted this picture of Canelo's head on top of a duck, and now just over 24 hours later, we got a couple of other things to talk about. As you can see with the tabs up here, we saw this, and then on the following morning, Jake has said, no matter how much money they spend, they won't be able to make a bigger fight than me and Canelito. That irked them to the core, and don't say Connor, he's more washed than a laundromat. Dummies could have made the Canelo September fight so much bigger by letting us do our thing, and me taking his names to the masses, but they knew I was going to KO his little ass. So Jake says that, and then adds on to it, where Canelo has said that my daughter asked me if I'm fighting Jake Paul. She never asked me about a fight before. We have to do pay-per-view. And then Jake here said, get the fuck out of here. You wanted to charge your fans to see you fight a YouTuber. So, okay, well, you can see that I made a little response here, but let me talk about what I'm thinking took place here. So what Jake is saying here is that, so when they were talking about negotiations, potentially fighting, Canelo had told Jake Paul that where to put the fight. Canelo had apparently said that we have to do pay-per-view. So it sounds like that was one of the things that they were in negotiations about in the current talks and negotiations and everything, where the fight was going to be taking place. Either on pay-per-view, where Canelo usually pretty much throughout his whole career has always had fights on it, or they could have gone to a streaming service like Netflix, where Jake had fought Mike Tyson in a very successful event where tons and tons of eyes were on it because it was on Netflix. Presumably Jake wanted to have the fight there, and Jake did mention that in the video that he had dropped yesterday. But yeah, it seems like Canelo wanted pay-per-view and Jake wanted Netflix, and that must have been one of the things that they had talked about during negotiations. That's what I understood it from here, which is why I replied to Jake's post here saying, okay, well, first off, before I read this, I'm so sick and tired that pay-per-view is still a thing in the year of 2025 when streaming services are like pretty much already taken over. I don't know why there's still like pay-per-views and stuff. So when Jake had done the Mike Tyson fight on Netflix, I saw this like as a huge win for the space overall. More eyes would be on the fights. Jake and Mike Tyson get a guaranteed payout, probably like plus some bunch of money depending on how many viewers it got. Win-win for everybody. Netflix gets eyes on them. Jake and Mike Tyson get more notoriety. So I mean, like, it's just a win-win for everybody. And then people that have Netflix, they don't need to pay anymore. If they have Netflix, cool, they get to see the fight. I don't agree with the pay-per-view model anymore. I think it's an old tradition that needs to go, and I say it here in this reply. I say pay-per-view is an old tradition model that needs to die already. Canelo pushing for the fight to become a pay-per-view is a notable L on his part. I gotta call it out. I gotta call it what it is, man. If Canelo's actually like really pushing for the fight to be pay-per-view, and that was like one of the considerations in whether he was going to be signing the contract or not, I think that's a very, very, very foolish move on his part. And dude, I don't even know why he would want, okay, why would you want to do that? For more money? Canelo net worth $250 million, $275 million. At least $275 million. So at least in the 9-figure marks, this dude is there. Why do you need more money? The best bet is to go the streaming service route, where plenty of more eyes are going to be on it. Plenty more people are going to be likely talking about it, as they don't have to like go out of their way to go to like their friends' houses or a bar or watch it legally somewhere else because they don't want to throw down $60, $70, $80 just to watch like pretty much only one fight. Like they're only there for like one fight pretty much, the main event. But yeah, like Canelo, like why would you need more money? You like, Brody, I think even if we're playing like the very conservative game here, you're at least worth 9 figures according to these things here, to these sources here. I don't think you need that much more money. But if you do want to play the money game, you got to play the where the attention's at, and that is on Netflix, where people are just gonna be able to pull up the fight like nothing because a lot of people in the world already have Netflix. But yeah, then I made another post about it in response to what Jake had said about Canelo, talking about trying to get the fight to be on pay-per-view. I had to make another post. I gotta call it out or whatever. I had it on here and said, Canelo cares more about money than trying to get rid of the tired old traditional pay-per-view model. Streaming services like Netflix hosting such events like this at no extra cost should be the new standard in the space. Canelo could have helped hugely here, but walked away. El Canelo. And I'm going to hold on to, I mean, if that's what really happened, I'm going to hold on to it, dude. Like, what the fuck? Like I said here, dude, streaming services like Netflix, like Max, like Peacock, hosting events like this at no extra cost to the people that are already subscribed. It should really be the new standard in the space. And here, I'll give you like a quick example. So WWE has their pay-per-view. Well, they're not called pay-per-views anymore because it's not technically pay-per-views. But like the WWE pay-per-views, they're on the Peacock streaming service, and you could access them, and they're there live. You could access them. You could watch the events live just for like a regular subscription of Peacock, which is not even $10 a month, and it's a win for a lot of people. And then with the WWE doing that, where they have the pay-per-views on like a streaming service like Peacock, anybody that has Peacock could access it, and they could get a bunch of new viewers like that. Or the barrier to entry to watch the pay-per-views is now less than $9.99 a month, and somebody could just like, yeah, I'll throw $10 there instead of, it's like, this pay-per-view is $60. I don't really want to throw away that much money just to watch 3 hours of an event. I'll pass on it, and then boom, the WWE loses a potential customer there. But since they have it on Peacock, they're able to get a bunch of new viewers, a bunch of new potential viewers to watch the thing and then get attached to a WWE product. And it's the same thing here, like with Canelo. Like he could gain like a whole new viewer base and stuff, but he just passed on it with this Saudi deal, which I'm sure like I was saying, dude, like I feel like a lot of people would take the big money, right? Because like Saudi Arabia, like they pay huge. But I mean, you kind of got to think of it like the long term. Like, okay, what do you want to be more so remembered as? Which Jake is doing like a really good job with being a trailblazer in the boxing space. Like him getting the Netflix fight, that'll be like one of the things that'll be left on his legacy whenever all is said and done. That he had like a huge boxing event, the first of its kind, be put on Netflix and be the first of its kind for the next generation of boxing consumers. And I'm sure he got paid pretty well there too with Netflix. But Jake then also gained a whole lot of notoriety with it, and he was thinking about the long game. But Canelo here, he's kind of like thinking the short term. And then it's also, dude, like I was saying, like he's likely getting paid like a ridiculous amount of money to be in Saudi. But like, dude, like your net worth, like it's already like a ridiculous amount, man. I don't know why you would want to need more when potentially going into this Netflix route with Jake Paul could open a whole bunch of new doors. Like your next fights could be on Netflix and then you get paid well. But I don't know, dude. And like Canelo's daughter, like it sounds like she's like really, really young. She's like really, really young, right? Like her generation is on streaming services now, dude. Like I'm saying, dude, like pay-per-view model is like a dying tradition, and I think it should be dead, and things should go over to streaming services. Now, with that, streaming services could rise a whole lot in money, but at least when you're there to like watch that pay-per-view type event, you're at least getting value out of everything else that's on the streaming service. But yeah, that's my take on this. Let's go on to KSI because he also has something to say. So we saw the video from Jake Paul yesterday, and KSI saw it too. And when KSI saw this contract type paper with the signatures on it, he's seen, and a bunch of other more people started seeing as well, that this was a confidentiality agreement. So not a fight contract, so it's not like they signed in like, okay, we're 100% fighting. No, this was a confidentiality agreement. And KSI notes that here in where he said that it's literally a confidentiality agreement, which you've now exposed, you idiot. LMAO. Who are you gonna fight now, buddy? Go remind Netflix that I've been ready to fight you. I'll be free after I KO Dylan Dennis March 29th. So KSI wants that Jake Paul fight already, and he's down to do it on Netflix. And kind of insinuating that Jake is like still running away from him, supposedly. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with that after March 29th. Once, KSI's pretty much winning the fight against Dylan Dennis, right? I don't think anybody would really be betting on Dylan to win. But we'll see how this KSI versus Jake Paul build up after March 29th goes. Because, dude, it has been over 7 years now that we've been waiting for this fight. After the initial call out by KSI at the Joe Weller fight. But then Jake, in response to, well, basically KSI here, and in response to everybody else that had brought up that they had signed a confidentiality agreement, Jake responded to everyone here and said, I know none of y'all have had a fight or ever signed a contract, but you signed an LOI, letter of intent, and confidentiality agreement with the person you're fighting, and then you shop that agreement to different media partners and platforms. So kind of like leveraging. Once you negotiate with the platforms, you then sign the full-length contract. Peasants. So Jake showing us a little bit more of the business aspect of the boxing world. Jake Paul then made another post here saying, Lord help the sheep peasants, sheep peasants, sheep peasants, sheep low IQ peasants, sheep no IQ peasants, sheep peasants, Sheep Lord please. And then went on to make a final post on his X accounts regarding the whole situation, saying that he's done with this little money chasing, no respect having nuts, bent the knee and became just like the rest, working on finalizing the next fight. And he puts up an elephant emoji, so I don't know if that's like a little clue or something. But yeah, he puts up this little elephant emoji there. But now this was another thing that took place, and I think this will be a funny way to end off the video here. So Most Valuable Promotions posted this video of Jake here, and Happy Punch reposted it saying Jake Paul has begun trolling Canelo. And it's just this video here.
Canelo, I'm coming, my puta.
A troll